Across the Farmington River sits the former Collins Company Axe Factory, located in Collinsville, part of the town of Canton in Hartford County, Connecticut. It has been just over a year since my cousin Matt and I visited the old factory. We recorded a miniature documentary on that trip, but left many of the buildings and factory grounds unexplored. Today, Matt and I are returning to pick up where we left off, to record and document what we find and include any changes that have occurred since our last visit. Before our feet hit the ground, I would like to give a little context on how the Collins Company began. The company was started by this gentleman, Samuel W. Collins, along with his brother David Collins and their cousin William Wells in 1826. Their goal was to manufacture axes. They purchased the old Humphrey sawmill and grist mill that came with water rights and privileges, as well as 5 acres of land in South Canton, Connecticut, where they built the company's original stone shop. That, of course, was just the beginning. Our first stop on the tour is the Canton Historical Museum. The museum building was part of the Collins Company originally. It started as the company plow shop that was used to assemble and store agricultural plows that were produced by the company. With the advent of gasoline-powered tractors from companies such as Ford, John Deere, and General Motors, the Collins Company ceased production of these horse-drawn plows in 1924. After the building served as a recreational center for the Collins Company employees, which included a bowling alley. Although this video is not sponsored by the Canton Historical Museum, I was given access to the museum and permission to record what I needed in order to tell the history of the Collins Company as accurately as I can. I'm going to be referencing material and exhibits from the museum on occasion, as well as this book, which is also from the museum. The Collins Company was at the top of innovation when it came to tool making, and over time their tools became the quote-unquote standard of the world. From the farms and forests of Connecticut, to the sugarcane fields and banana plantations of South America, to the Transcontinental Railway, Admiral Byrd's expedition to the Pole, and everything in between, the Collins Company tools helped build and shape the agricultural and industrial landscapes of the previous 2 centuries. Incidentally, the Farmington Valley Railway Society is responsible for this layout of the Collins factory and its surroundings, which is also in the museum. Jumping around a bit, the next building is the upper power plant. In 1935, this 2-story brick hydroelectric power plant was built with a wing wall stone dam that was added to the larger Collinsville Dam. You can see the dam over on the right side of your screen. The powerhouse contained a vertical Lafell or Francis turbine and a Westinghouse electrical generator. The powerhouse was sold to the Hartford Electric Light Company, Helco for short, after the Collins Company closed its doors. Canton Electric LLC recently restored the system with a new Kaplan turbine as well as a fish ladder and eel passage. The powerhouse with its new turbine is generating power for the grid instead of the factory as it once did. Nevertheless, it is nice to see the old powerhouse revitalized and producing electricity after so many years. Incidentally, this is as close as I could get to the powerhouse, as it is currently owned by the power company instead of by the owners of the factory, and I did not have permission to explore further. Moving back across the river to the superintendent's/supervisor's office, This two-story brick structure was built in 1908 to replace the previous one that was built in 1846. As of the recording of this video, it is home to downright music and art. In February of 1850, the first train arrived in Collinsville carrying both freight and passengers alike. The railroads played a pivotal role in the development of all aspects of industry, and the Collins Company was no exception.
I think the goal is to save as many of these buildings as possible. The problem is they're crumbling faster than they can be restored.
Just gotta keep the roofs good. Buys you time.
It would help if all of the buildings had tenants. There'd be more incentive to keep them up.
This bridge was used by the New Haven and Northampton Railroad. The Collins Company received raw materials and transported their merchandise, being new tools, using this railroad. I imagine the view from the bridge is just as beautiful today as it was when steam trains were hauling Collins Company tools across it back in the 1800s. That little building in the foreground was the scale house / weigh station, which started with the two-story brick yard office built in 1895 as the platform scale house. It was responsible for steel inventory control.
Valve work?
Don't know. You want to try it?
Yeah, good.
Currently, the scale house is being used as an apartment or private residence. The brick building in the foreground was a pump / wheelhouse. It once contained a 48-inch Dayton wheel that powered the machines in the connecting granite building. This is a newer structure than the granite building behind it. The granite building / new stone shop / punching room was built in 1846 and is the second oldest on the property. The three-story building was built out of locally quarried granite from where the company main office stands today. Matt and I are going to make a full circle around this fence and come back to the stone shop in a few minutes. First, let's take a look at some of the other structures on this end of the property. This little brick building was built in 1905 for storage. By 1950, it was used to stage fire brick and scrap metal. It's known as the Pavilion / Fire Brick Storage Building. The brick building in the background was built as a chemistry laboratory in 1907. In 1909, it stored fire brick, sand, and clay. Later, the Die-Cast Steel Company took over the shop in 1924. In the foreground is the former converting shop / steel shop / JUG or jug that once contained a beehive furnace, so named for its shape, to produce blister steel, carbonized iron with charcoal in the form of bars. The long brick shop is the brick crucible filling shop, built in 1903. It was used for staging steel scrap, plow parts, and buffing and grinding wheels. By 1950, it was used to stage wooden handles on boxes. As you probably noticed, there was a light bulb burning near the door, so the building must currently be in use. This concrete foundation is unfortunately all that remains of the lower forge / trip hammer shop that was built in 1859. The building was recently torn down. From what I understand, it was damaged by a fire and deemed unsafe by the fire department, and consequently demolished. It was still standing the last time Matt and I were here. I'll insert a couple of brief clips in this video, or you can go back and check out our previous video from our last adventure here. Here's a brief comparison of what the property looked like from our previous trip to today. This penstock is mostly blocked with leaves. However, if the blockage was cleared away, it appears to still be usable. This one once powered a couple of water wheels to power Cushman turbines inside the building.
Well, the old waterways. I wonder what's inside the building. Yeah.
Machinist Elisha Root joined the Collins Company in 1832. He was a mechanical genius and brought greatly improved productivity and growth at the plant, where he became superintendent before joining the Colt Arms Company in Hartford, Connecticut in 1849. The Granite Building, or New Stone Shop, was built to power Elisha Root's die forging machines used to produce solid axe bodies. There were two 125 horsepower, 48-inch Dayton water wheels that powered 16 forming machines on the first floor and 26 shaving machines on the second. Over the years, the New Stone Shop was used for different tasks. In 1884, it was used for a punching room, storage, and wrench manufacturing. In 1903, the pole department forging was on the first floor, steam pipe fitting and storage on the second floor, and wrench manufacturing on the third. It became the supply store in 1921 and staged cardboard, handles, shooks, machine parts, mill supplies, and was used to charge the batteries on electric trucks as well. Matt and I unfortunately did not have permission to enter the Granite Building. When I stuck my arm inside the window with my camera, the air was quite heavy and smelled of mold and insulation, which you can see falling from the ceiling. Quite frankly, I wouldn't want to walk around inside without a respirator. Notice the floor-to-ceiling posts are made of wood. I have no doubt that the stone shop can be cleaned up and put back into a state of usefulness. I just hope I haven't spoken too late. The stairs were inside the fence at the time, which is why we didn't explore them earlier. After a quick assessment, I had very little confidence in their structural integrity, but decided to make the climb anyway. I was hoping to catch a glimpse of the inside through the glass in the front door. There's not a whole lot to see, but it's another glimpse at the interior of this beautiful old and historically significant structure. The big, long building was the Upper Long Forge, or Axe Forge/Repair Shop, which was built in 1852 in response to demand for pickaxes, shovels, and more due to the California Gold Rush.
Big old turbine.
This building with the turbine in front of it is the former Forge Shop/Blacksmith Shop/Repair Shop, which was built in 1906 for maintenance of smithing and axe forging. In 1909, there was a repair department that connected to the Upper Long Forge Axe Forge Repair Shop next door. By 1950, it became a forge shop in and of itself.
Wonder what the restoration on that would be.
You balance it. That might take a while.
Yeah.
In 1884, the Upper Long Forge became a repair shop. Then, in 1903, it contained a hull yoke rotary pump in the wheelhouse at the south end of the structure. Further revisions were made over the years. By 1950, it was a forge shop with heavy presses. A penstock ran through the lower level with a 1,000-gallon hull yoke rotary pump.
Problem with this.
Look at the electrical lines up there.
Despite their outward appearance, these buildings are not abandoned. They're actually being leased by a number of different companies, one of which I believe is a carpentry business. It may not look very inviting to walk around these old brick buildings, but with a little bit of cleanup, I imagine some of that old Collins Company productivity and swagger could be reinstated in the property.
Tell where you're at. It's a really heavy building.
Here we go.
In the weeds, this penstock caught our attention.
Sort of better.
I think something's wrong with that bridge. The old collapse thing in the church.
Yeah.
And then hook it back up. Make sure the turbine's balanced. And you're done.
This is a CP Bradway turbine. I was surprised to see it sitting where it was, though where else would one expect to see an old turbine except on old factory grounds? CP Bradway Machine Works used to manufacture turbines in West Stafford, Connecticut, going back to the 1880s and up until water power was no longer preferred for manufacturing in the early 20th century. Although this turbine has definitely seen better days, and I'm not sure if it's missing any parts or not, in my opinion, it deserves to be restored and placed in the museum. The boiler house was built between 1889 and 1901. It has two sections, the boiler room and the Holyoke engine room. We'll get to the boilers in a moment. This section of the tour was guided by property manager Kathy Taylor. Over the noise of rushing water, Kathy told me electricity used to be generated here. As you'll see in a moment, there is at least one turbine no longer in use that was used for that purpose. As you can hear, water from the canal outside is still flowing through the building as strong as ever. It's a shame there is so much debris covering this turbine. It has been sitting here for many decades, and I have no doubt with the water still flowing, it would be more than viable today if it were in operable condition. I'm standing over what is called a tail race that runs to the Ford shop next door. I'm not sure if you can make it out through the gloom and the debris covering it, but there is a belt still attached to that big wheel toward the back wall. This boiler is a Scotch Marine boiler that dates back to 1945. It is the same boiler that you saw when I first walked into the boiler house, and it was being used up until just a few years ago when it was finally retired after nearly 3/4 of a century. Aside from the stack of fire hoses to the left, there isn't a whole lot lurking in the shadows back here. Just a lot of old memories for the building itself. If these big boilers look like stripped down steam locomotives to you, you're absolutely right. They are a similar boiler type to a locomotive, but lack the rest of the mechanics, pistons, push rods, and wheels that make a steam locomotive a mobile machine. I can almost feel the heat coming from those big boilers from about 100 years ago. This boiler, though currently in use, is in need of some service. The rest, however, need full restoration. The missing double doors to this boiler have actually been restored and are hanging on the exterior of the Crown and Hammer pub, which is also on the same property. Incidentally, the Crown and Hammer pub was originally a New Haven Railroad station and the Collins Company freight depot, which was built in 1850. Here, Matt and I stopped to check out the canal that feeds the penstocks. We spotted what appears to be concrete footings below the surface and speculated what they may have been used for in the past. So much has been built, then changed or lost over the years that we left it up to speculation. These gears open and close gates that either block off or allow water to flow into the canal from the forebay on the opposite side of the building behind me. Next, we'll be taking a quick walk through the upper axe polishing shop, that's this red building on the right, to the brick emery wheel shop on the end. The Emery Wheel Shop / Collins Company building replaced the old stone shop in 1907 and contained a Holyoke rotary pump by 1908. As of the filming of this video, Bridge Street Rustics was located upstairs, though I've since read they have switched to a strictly online business model. Although the floor is painted, you can see a severe blemish on the floorboards caused by an unknown incident from when the factory was still in production. The cleaned up, yet still rustic interior of this factory space and all of the antiques from Bridge Street Rustics really blend together and present a very inviting atmosphere. It's a shame they are no longer here. The three-story brick polishing shop perpendicular to the forebay dam was constructed in 1904. It was a machete polishing shop for grinding and polishing machetes and axes. There is a flume or penstock that runs under the building, formerly used to provide water to the long grinding shop. Through the window looking west, Bridge Street and the forebay are in full view. These mechanisms and wheels are part of a freight elevator in the west end of the building that is no longer operable. Large leather belts strung between these large wheels acted as a pulley system that would have driven the elevator up and down. My arm isn't quite long enough to reach the window.
I got it. So do you not operate this elevator?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just up on the top flight of stairs to see the defunct elevator. Now back downstairs, we are headed for a different freight elevator that is still in service.
Oh yeah.
We are going to take a ride up to the top floor, and Matt and our tour guide, Kathy Taylor, are going to demonstrate how the elevator works.
Close it again, you have to hold it outside first. So put in, I think both in 1937. Anyway, I take the back stairs. As well.
This space was refurbished some years ago as a loft or large apartment space, though it is not being used as a living space currently. I can only imagine what it would have been like to work up here when machetes were being manufactured. Production aside, the view is memorable for both the location and the scenery. All of the tools and machinery have long since been removed from this space, but it still retains its rustic charm. The wood support beams, brick walls, and high ceilings are all part of the ambiance. With panoramic views out the windows on 3 sides of the building, this space is a desirable one to say the least. Overlooking the forebay from the 3rd floor of the polishing shop is a real treat. It's not a sight or perspective many people get to experience these days.
We might go down to let's go down 2 floors.
Back in the elevator, we are going all the way down to the ground floor.
Tenant space, so.
Oh, okay.
Then we have to close everything again, because nobody can, a lot of people wanted it upstairs and we made look at it. The doors are closed, so we'll have to close the inside one again. I'll do the
Cool.
back door going out. You guys have to come. Same thing. So now we're just below where the antique was. So I just have to go.
Down in the basement, there is this long-defunct turbine and fire pump that give an example of the type of equipment that was used when the factory was still in production.
Look at this.
Yeah, this is my kind of spot.
Yeah. The only one you can really see that's still here. Very well.
This old turbine could be replaced with a new one, and electricity could be generated to power the building.
But,
All right, so yeah, you got this, which can run off that shaft. The old-fashioned luxury connector
that's
with
pretty nice, yeah.
Yeah, I'll bet.
So this is the site of the first. I think they must have brought this in and then built the rest of it. So,
The old turbine could potentially be restored, but it would likely be more cost-effective to just replace it. Maybe the old turbine could be placed in the Canton Historic Museum.
I thought my radiant heat setup was pretty cool, but yeah, this is a bit of a different ballgame. Does any of this work now? Is anything down here functional in any way, shape?
Yeah. Hardly know. I've been here and I'm sure not for a long time.
These are other pumps. These are electric
Yeah.
pumps.
GE. General Electric.
It was like.
Here's a closer look at the fire pump.
So I call it sunrise.
I'm pretty sure the turbine and all the connecting apparatus was installed when the building was being constructed. There is no way to remove the turbine from the basement, making it more or less a permanent fixture of the building.
Now that I'm
Like a steam, it's a pressure cooker.
okay.
You can see the weight Matt was referring to when he was referencing a pressure cooker just a moment ago. Here is another weight hanging from this chain. For what purpose, I'm not sure.
Just to see the weight hanging here.
Another weight.
Yeah. It's a bigger one.
And that goes with this.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. So we could close something.
It would be quite a sight to see these big wheels spinning after so many years.
Yeah, you could probably find something online that shows them working.
The weight I showed you a moment ago is tethered here. Back upstairs,
So this is going to, kind of walk around.
at long last, here is a look at this penstock or flume up close instead of through the window. The water is coming from the forebay on the opposite side of the brick polishing shop and goes to the long grinding shop. While Matt is warming his hands at the steam valve, I'm headed for a section of the building where there are imprints of factory workers' shoes in the original wooden floorboards. They are difficult to see in person and may not show up on camera, but they can be found by feeling the contour of the floor with your feet.
Yeah, you can feel it.
Possibly here, actually. I'm not so sure about here, but maybe.
Factory employees would stand at their stations and conduct work. Over many years, standing in the same basic spot, their footprints were slowly formed in the floorboards.
That is amazing.
That building outside with the bell tower on top is the former packing shop / bell tower building. The long two-story wooden structure was built in 1867, and the cupola holds a Naylor Vickers and Company of England cast iron bell. In order to see the bell up close, I need to go up to the neighboring rooftop of the shipping building and warehouse. The Bridge Street end of the shipping building and warehouse was built in 1904. The south end, which replaced the carpenter shop, was built in 1937, essentially extending the length of the structure. Currently, this building is now home to Antiques on the Farmington. Matt and I explored the interior of this building on our last visit. Please watch that video for a tour of the interior. These stairs are actually in an old elevator shaft and have replaced the elevator as the means to access the roof. The Naylor Vickers and Company bell was cast in 1856 and was a gift to Sam Collins and his company in 1857. Downstairs once again, this time in the packing shop / bell tower building, we are currently 2 stories below where the bell is hanging up on the roof. Here, product tools were packed and made ready for shipment to customers of the company. This space was used for inspection of products or tools, and there was a conveyor belt that extended through this wall, most likely where this door is located, and labeling would have taken place on the opposite side.
Inspection. So this door back here, this blue colored door, would that have had some sort of a
I think it was a conveyor belt.
conveyor belt?
I think when you look in the employee photos, I don't know if I have the one showing that. I might have one showing the conveyor belt. I don't have like the full, but I think you see part of it from the other side on the employee photos. There's one down on the right, and he's on the other side, I think, doing labels or something. So that's cool.
These giant pulley wheels are actually from a different location and not originally from the Collins factory. They were to be used as decor of some sort for the Jazz Factory project.
Yeah. The one down here looks bigger. Than this one here.
This space is called the quote-unquote Jazz Factory due to a musical venue project that was planned for this space. Although the project never materialized, the nickname stuck. Currently, the space is unused apart from temporary storage of items from some of the other tenants. Looking up, Kathy pointed out that this is an example of the original paint color of the factory.
Here we go.
Well, it's a little sunny right now.
Remember all the doors blocked.
Well, I know which one's not blocked.
Looking out over the forebay, you can see why this unique and beautiful spot is so attractive for a restaurant or music venue.
That's a great spot too, huh?
Yeah, it's just find somebody gorgeous. you know, it's a big space, and it's not a lot of parking.
There is the former upper axe polishing shop, the axe polishing shop in the middle, and the 3-story brick polishing shop on the end. As we near the end of the tour, one question remains. How did this sprawling complex that once manufactured the best edge and hand tools on the market become a space for offices, retail, artists, and musicians that it is today? Some might say it was the times that changed, but it isn't quite that simple. As I'm sure you've noticed, the factory was built on the Farmington River. My answer starts with what the locals refer to as the flood of 1955. On August 19, 1955, there was an unusual amount of rain. This and the fact that it had already been an unusually wet month left the water table brimming. Up the river, there were other dams that broke due to the abnormally high amount of water. Imagine millions of gallons of water, along with wreckage from bridges, trees, and any other debris, charging over the dam behind me in an unwavering torrent. And yes, Matt and I were both well aware of the dangers of being out on the river, as Matt is pointing out to you here. The sign reads, "Warning, water levels and flow may change without notice." That sign is posted for good reason. A third of the factory buildings were destroyed during the August 19th flood. The Collins Company employed its own employees to clean up the mess, so they wouldn't be without an income during this period. To give you an idea of the water level across the property during the flood, here are Matt and myself behind the boiler house for reference. The water level during the flood nearly touched the windows that are visible in the upper left-hand side of your screen, up above the lower roof line. Needless to say, Matt and I would both be well underwater and probably washed way downriver had the flood occurred on the day that we were there. After the cleanup and repairs were complete, the company did resume manufacturing tools, but never fully recovered after the devastation of the flood inflicted on the factory. Costs were rising, and yes, times were changing. After 140 years, the Collins Company finally closed its doors in 1966. Over half a century later, there is life at the old factory. Even some of the local wildlife have found a home here. My hope is for the surviving factory buildings to be restored while retaining all of the telltale signs of their industrial past. A tremendous boon for the property is the penstocks. Restoring the waterways and replacing the old turbines with new ones would then provide a way for the buildings to be self-sufficient, with the turbines providing electricity for lights and utilities instead of machinery. An expensive endeavor, yes, but one that would pay off over time and may even provide a few jobs in the form of maintenance personnel. Ultimately, it is my hope that the surviving structures of the Collins factory get restored with the same respect and care that the Collins Company used to produce its world-renowned tools. I especially hope the restoration retains the history, the working freight elevators, and the footprints in the floorboards. As the sun sets on the Farmington River and the former Collins Company factory, here is one last rolling look at the complex. I want to give a special thanks to Kathy Taylor and Thomas Ayers for chatting with me while I was at the museum and giving me lots of background information on the Collins Company. And of course, Kathy Taylor also took Matt and I on the guided tour of the factory and the grounds. She was a major help to this project, and I can't thank her enough. Thank you to all of you who work at the museum for allowing me into the building and to record the exhibits. Folks, if you're going to be in the Canton area, I highly recommend stopping in at the museum and taking a look. There's a lot more to see than I showed in this video. I want to thank you for joining Matt and I on this adventure. I hope you have enjoyed a walk through a few pages of the history books. Please consider liking and subscribing, and I look forward to seeing all of you on my next adventure.